I mentioned it in my last video. I knew this Cleo vulnerability was going to be a major problem. Now we have the Clop Ransomware group naming 66 victims on their dark web leak site, and they have 48 hours to get back to them or they're going to start releasing more information. We're going to update you on that, plus other stories this week. In this video, I'm Brian, cybersecurity expert with Exact IT Solutions and Cybersecurity. Welcome to the channel. Here we go. We got Clop Ransomware Group is now extorting 66 Cleo data theft victims. That's going to be a big story here that's going to bleed into 2025 with over 4,000 users of this software. And we know when these vulnerabilities hit, as I mentioned in the last video, with publicly facing applications like this, a lot of times it takes companies several months, if not longer, to patch these vulnerabilities. And as a result, cybercriminals and these groups like Clop Ransomware, they jump all over these vulnerabilities and attack companies left and right. So we'll let you know who's been impacted. But before we do, let's talk about some other stories that hit the news this week, the week of Christmas 2024. But the first story up on our docket today is the Pittsburgh Regional Transit dealing with a ransomware attack that slowed the light rail system last week. What Pittsburgh Regional Transit last week thought was a computer glitch that affected rail service has turned out to be a ransomware attack on the transit service. So it took Pittsburgh Regional Transit a few days to kind of figure out what was really going on with their IT systems. And it seems like they kind of limped towards a recovery process, which is indicative of an organization that wasn't fully prepared for something like this and hasn't really practiced if an event like this affected their organization. So they kind of lived and learned, and that is evident in the story that is written here. And they go on to say that they don't know if any information has been compromised. That is still under investigation. But they don't believe, they say in the same article that the agency doesn't believe personal rider information has been compromised. So you can't say both things in the same article. You can't sit there and say that you don't know if rider information has been compromised when you don't know what actually has been compromised. In situations like this, we typically, at least at a minimum, see employee information stolen by cybercriminals, if not more. So because the Pittsburgh Transit was not fully prepared for this, we don't have a lot of information to go off of because they're still trying to figure things out, which is going to cost them a lot of money to try to figure all this stuff out. And you know, they're being kind of tight-lipped at this point because they don't have a lot of information. So it took about a week for this to unfold for the transit system. Things were down, systems were down, but they believed initially it was an IT glitch. But then after a few days, they realized that it was a bigger problem than just an IT glitch. So we'll keep you updated to see if this story develops anymore, but here's an example of another organization, sort of government related, but public service related, dealing with a ransomware attack. And that's a theme that we are seeing lately with these ransomware attacks is ransomware groups like to go after organizations like this, where the public relies on their services. And this organization, when they go down, they want to get back up as quickly as possible because they have customers and they have people in the community that they serve that want these services back up and running. So, you know, transit systems, we've seen it in multiple major cities where they've been hit. We see schools and universities hit all the time because they have a responsibility to keep their doors open and remain open and keep operational for the people that they serve. Same thing with, you know, towns that go down and municipalities that get hit. All of these have communities and people that rely on their services, and when they go down, they feel a lot of pressure and they get a lot of heat. This is why cybercriminals like to go after them because they feel like because of that, they will increase their chances of getting paid. So think about your business, think about the community, or if you're involved in the community, and if you are, you may want to look at your cyber defenses to see if cyber criminals are targeting you. And right on cue, as an example of that, we have Wood County over in Ohio, and they just paid $1.5 million this week to resolve their ransomware attack, because as they went through the process, they learned that they don't have things as buttoned up and as backed up and secured as they thought, and paying the cyber criminals to unlock these files was a quicker and more efficient and less costly way for this county to get back up on their feet and serve the community that they serve. I've said this before in many talks that I've given, that along the way you meet a lot of CEOs who have a lot of pride and leaders that have a lot of pride, and they don't want to think about ever paying the ransom, and they almost look at it as like a badge of honor if their company or organization gets hit, that they would never pay the ransom. But the reality of it is when you're in a situation and you start to get facts and information put in front of you, and you start to look at what your options are, sometimes paying the ransom, as Wood County found out, is the best option that you have. Sometimes organizations don't have their backups fully intact or whatever, and it's quicker or easier to pay the ransom and get the unlock key than it is to go through other means to get your company back up and running. These are conversations that I've been involved in. These are conversations that happen all the time to victims of ransomware attacks who have to evaluate a situation and decide whether or not paying that ransom will serve their customers, serve their business, their employees better than painstakingly going through the process of maybe getting back up and running. So if you want to never be in the position of paying the ransom, you need to test this stuff and do cybersecurity the right way, which I've said on this channel a million times, most companies don't do. So if you want to know what that looks like, there's resources in the description where you can learn about all this stuff and all the things that you need to do so you don't have to pay the ransom. But the reality of it is today, most businesses, most organizations, most government operations in the US are going to struggle to recover from ransomware because of the way that they are preparing and defending against these attacks. They're not ready, and unfortunately, that leaves us vulnerable to these types of attacks, and then also considering having to pay them probably for the next several years, because it's going to take a long time for these organizations and these businesses and industries to turn this around. And our final article we're going to talk about this week is just when you think that the feds and the government are getting ahead on ransomware and maybe a particular group, things kind of change and things rear their ugly heads. And these ransomware groups and criminals never really go away long term. They may disappear for a little while when the feds kind of turn the heat up, but they usually, and they do come back if the feds don't get these guys and actually put them in jail. And that's what we're seeing again with LockBit, one of the most notorious ransomware groups that have ever played the game, have now announced that they're coming back in 2025 with a specific date of February 3rd, 2025, where LockBit says that they're coming back and they're coming back with a vengeance. Apparently, they've rebuilt their infrastructure that the feds and the Department of Justice here in the United States have taken down, and they've rebuilt anew, and they are ready to go into action starting in February. And that's not good news, as I just reported, that companies are struggling, industries are struggling, governments are struggling to keep up with these ransomware threats, as we're going to learn here in a minute when I touch on the big story of the week, which is the Cleo vulnerability, which I'm going to get into the details of that here shortly. You have this coming on the heels in February, and there's nothing that's going to stop this. This group is ready to go. They're probably already embedded or already have affiliates that are embedded in corporate networks that they are getting ready to hit. And when they come out on February 3rd, it's not like they're just going to be like, hey, here's our dark website, check it out. No, they're going to list victims on that dark website, so you can be sure to watch on February 3rd what the big announcement is around who LockBit will announce as their first victim or victims when they reemerge in February of 2025. So we're going to get into the final topic of this week's video here. And if you got this far, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel, hit that like button on the video. We bring you updates like this every week now where we cover a wide array of topics with the latest ransomware attacks, the latest victims. And this one is going to be a big one, folks. This Cleo vulnerability. I mentioned it last week. You can go watch last week's video when I talked about all these vulnerabilities and all these issues that companies have in their systems, especially these publicly facing systems, ones that you can access through the internet, or you're as an employee that works at these organizations, you can access these things over the internet, and it allows you to do work and kind of fills the void that we need out there, these applications and software that we need to fulfill remote work and work from home and all the things that we've become accustomed to when it comes to getting work done. And unfortunately, cybercriminals know this and they like to take advantage of it. And we see it all the time. We've probably had 4 or 5 big ones just in the last year. And over the last 5 years, these types of vulnerabilities lead to the most devastating cyber attacks that cost companies billions and billions of dollars to remedy or get through because they actually become a victim. Because remember, when these vulnerabilities come out, companies can't just sit idle or you will get hit. You have to dedicate resources to getting these systems up to date. And sometimes updating the systems isn't as easy as just like clicking a few clicks of a mouse and saying, update my system. Sometimes you have to plan and take things offline and do things very methodically, just because that's the nature of technology and that's kind of how it works, and why there's system administrators out there who get paid lots of money to make sure that these systems are up and running and available to users like you at all times. And unfortunately, we have a Cleo vulnerability that this ransomware group Clop has taken advantage of here out of the gate, and they said they were going to do it. And in the last week or so, they've decided that they're going to announce that we've hit 60-some victims, and a lot of those victims are around the world. Now, I've seen some stories back and forth, but Blue Yonder is one of the people listed on the dark web leak site. And I'm not going to share the screen here for this portion of it, because whenever I share the dark web on my screen or on YouTube, for whatever reason, the videos don't get shown. So remember to like the video so other people find this stuff, other people get this information. But the Clop Ransomware group, I'm just going to kind of go through a few of the major companies that I see listed. Now they've hashed some of the names, so we don't have the full name yet, but we can pretty well speculate who they are. And I can say there's a lot of IT companies and tech companies that are among the 66 victims that have been listed so far. Again, Blue Yonder, they've come out and said they haven't been a victim, but according to Clop, they have stolen data from their Cleo-based systems. Western Digital has also been named a victim, as well as a company called DataTech. Cleo Communications, funny enough, CLEO, the same name. Centric Software, we have Claw Logistics, CPS Energy, a company named Teradata, Hearst Communications, Sierra Network Systems, Steel Technologies, Mercury Gate International. A lot of companies in the U.S. Thomson Reuters has been listed a big provider of IT software in the accounting world, among other industries. Datadog, Breakthrough Beverage. There's just so many. Premier Inc., Sweetwater Sound, OFS Brands. Lots of companies here that were named as victims of this Cleo vulnerability group. Hertz Rent-A-Car is in the list. Northrop Grumman, a defense contractor, a major defense contractor. Coyote Logistics, BMI US, Business Solver is another group here that's been, and like small companies aren't going to use this software, so this is going to be some pretty well-known mid-market and larger companies that get named as a result of this. Spade Technologies, another one. Sullivan and Cromwell. SMC3 is another transportation logistics company that's been. Burris Logistics. Seattle Genetics is another group that's supposedly been saying. Polaris Industries, looks like the same one as the ATV and maker of other types of equipment. U.S. Luggage seems to be the bulk of it from what I can see. Hubbard Hall is another Clop group, but these are older, so from October, so that is not part of the Cleo attack. So a lot of companies, 66 of these companies, they all have 48 hours. They basically are saying that they have the data of many companies who use Cleo, and their teams are reaching out and calling your company to provide you with a special secret chat where you can start communicating with these victims. And I suppose if they do not respond by the 27th, the 26th, they are going to start releasing the full names and starting to show what they have or what information they have of these victims. So I would, I would engage lawyers and cybersecurity professionals before you start engaging with a chat with these guys, because saying the wrong thing could put you in a really bad position in terms of what you can negotiate. But it will be interesting to see what this group is able to do with this first batch of companies. There will certainly be follow-on ransomware groups who also try to do the same thing. But as it's been already reported that Cleo has over 4,000 users, so you can only guess that this list of 66 is going to grow with either within this batch or within the next batch of groups that they decide to start extorting in this manner. So heading into 2025, this is going to be a big deal. This is going to be a massive data breach. It's going to expose the information and data from these companies for who knows how many millions of people. More than likely, depending on what's stored on these systems, you're going to get a lot of personal information, at least from the employees of these companies, if not more who they do business with, and potentially more information around that. But we'll certainly keep you updated as we learn more. It's early here. This was just released the other day. These companies are still in the process of getting their head around what they need to do to respond. So we'll certainly keep you updated, because as I said last week in the video update for last week, that this was going to be a big problem, and that is now unfolding in front of our eyes. As we can see, that this group is now taking this to the next level. So we'll see how this plays out over the next week, and I'll be sure to update you in the next video. If you're a victim and you have a comment, drop it down below. But please remember to subscribe to the channel and check out the resources below if you need help with any of this stuff. If you've been a victim of ransomware or you just want to protect yourself or your business, Check out the links below in the description. I'm Brian with Exact IT and Cybersecurity. I'll see you in the next video.